I gave her 3 years of my life, £445,000, every penny I had saved, and one morning she was just gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. I woke up that Tuesday morning the same way I'd woken up every morning for the past 3 years. My hand reached across the bed instinctively, searching for her warmth, but the sheets were cold. Not just cool from an early rise, but cold. Empty cold. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the Filipino sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of our small apartment in Iloilo. The space beside me was vacant. Her pillow was gone. I sat up, confusion crawling through my chest like ice. Valentina? My voice sounded strange in the silence, hollow. I called again, louder this time. Val? Nothing. I swung my legs out of bed, my bare feet hitting the tile floor. The apartment felt different, too quiet, too still. I walked to the bathroom, empty. The kitchen, empty. I opened the closet and my heart stopped. Her clothes were gone, all of them. The dresses I'd bought her in Manila, the shoes she'd carefully arranged by color, the small jewelry box I'd given her for her birthday. Gone. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and dialed her number. It rang once, then an automated voice. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I tried again. Same message. Panic flooded through me now, hot and sharp. I opened every drawer in the apartment, calling her name like a madman. Her makeup bag, gone. Her toiletries, gone. The small, framed photo of us at Guimaras Island, gone. It was like she'd never existed. I stood in the center of our living room, breathing hard, trying to make sense of it. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe her mother. Maybe her brother. I grabbed my laptop and logged into our online banking. I'd transferred £25,000 just 2 days ago. The final payment for the property we were buying in the provinces. Our future home. The account loaded. My stomach dropped. Zero balance. I stared at the screen, refreshing it over and over like the numbers would change. But they didn't. The £25,000 was gone, transferred out yesterday afternoon, while I'd been at the market buying groceries for dinner. I scrolled through the transaction history, my vision blurring. Over the past 3 years, I'd transferred money to her account more times than I could count. £1,200 here, £5,000 there, £12,000, £85,000, £95,000. It all blurred together into one massive, horrifying total, £445,000, nearly £500,000. Every penny I'd saved over 40 years of working as an architect in Bristol, gone, and so was she. I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my phone, staring at the empty space where her things used to be. My mind raced backward, trying to understand, trying to find the moment where I should have known. But all I could see was her smile, her laugh, the way she'd rest her head on my shoulder while we watched movies, the way she'd tell me she loved me. How could I have been so blind? 3 years earlier, I'd arrived in the Philippines, a broken man. My wife of 40 years, Margaret, had died 6 months before from pancreatic cancer. The house in Bristol felt like a tomb. Every room held her memory. The kitchen where she'd baked bread every Sunday. The garden she'd tended with such care. The bedroom where I'd held her hand as she slipped away. I couldn't breathe there anymore. I needed to escape. So I booked a one-way ticket to Manila, then a connecting flight to Iloilo. No plan, no purpose, just a desperate need to be anywhere but home. I rented a small apartment near the city center and spent the first 2 weeks in a haze. I walked the streets aimlessly, ate alone in small restaurants, watched the sun set over the water and felt absolutely nothing. I was 65 years old and my life felt over. Then one afternoon, I walked into a small travel agency near my apartment. I decided maybe I should see Guimaras Island, do something, anything. The girl behind the desk looked up when I entered, and for the first time in months, I felt seen. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" Her voice was warm, kind. Her smile reached her eyes. She was young, maybe early 30s, with long dark hair pulled into a neat ponytail. Her name tag read, Valentina. "I'd like to book a day trip to Guimaras," I said, my voice rough from disuse. "Of course. When would you like to go?" She pulled out a brochure and started explaining the different packages. But then she paused and looked at me more carefully. "Are you okay, sir?" The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in months. "I'm fine," I lied. She tilted her head slightly, her dark eyes searching my face. "You don't look fine. You look like you're carrying something heavy." I don't know why I answered honestly. Maybe it was her tone. Maybe it was because she was a stranger, and strangers are sometimes easier to talk to than friends. My wife died 6 months ago. I came here to get away from the memories. Her expression softened immediately. Not pity. Understanding. "I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly hard." "It is." She didn't look away, didn't change the subject. "My father died 2 years ago. Heart attack. I still reach for my phone sometimes to call him before I remember he's gone." Something in my chest loosened. Yes, exactly that. We talked for over an hour that day. She didn't try to sell me the tour package. She just listened. She told me about her father, about growing up in Iloilo, about how grief sneaks up on you in unexpected moments. When I finally left, I felt lighter than I had in months. I came back the next day, ostensibly to finalize the booking, but really, I just wanted to talk to her again. "You came back?" she said, smiling. "I did. I thought maybe I should actually book that tour." "Or," she said, leaning forward slightly, "you could skip the tourist boat and I could show you the real Guimaras this weekend." "I'm off on Sunday." My heart stuttered. "You don't have to do that. I know. But I want to. You seem like you could use a friend." And honestly, so could I. That Sunday, we took the ferry to Guimaras together. She showed me hidden beaches the tour groups never visited. We ate fresh mangoes under the shade of trees and talked about everything and nothing. She asked about my life in Bristol. I told her about my career as an architect, about the bridges and buildings I'd designed. She told me about working at the travel agency, about dreams of opening her own business someday. "Why haven't you?" I asked. She shrugged, a shadow crossing her face. "Money. Family obligations. My younger brother Lito is in university. My mother depends on me. There's never enough left over for dreams." I wanted to help her right then, but I stayed quiet. We watched the sunset from the pier before taking the ferry back, and when she smiled at me as the sky turned orange and pink, I felt something I hadn't felt since Margaret died. Hope. We started seeing each other regularly after that. Dinners at small local restaurants. Walks along the Iloilo River Esplanade. Movie nights at my apartment. She never asked me for anything. Never hinted. She just gave me her time, her laughter, her presence. And slowly, I started to feel alive again. A month passed, then 6 weeks. One evening, as we sat on my small balcony watching the city lights, I said, "I'm supposed to fly back to Bristol next week." She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "I know. I don't want to go." "Then don't." It was that simple. I canceled my flight. I extended my apartment lease. And I let myself fall completely into whatever this was becoming. 6 months into our relationship, Valentina arrived at my apartment looking troubled. We'd planned to have dinner, but she barely touched her food. "What's wrong?" I asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. She hesitated, then sighed. "It's Lito, my brother." "What about him?" "He got accepted into the university. Engineering program. It's his dream, Jasper. He's so smart. He worked so hard for this." She paused, her eyes glistening. "But we can't afford the enrollment fee. It's due next week. If we don't pay it, he loses his spot." "How much is it?" £1,200. She said it quickly, like the number pained her. "But I'm not asking you for money. I would never do that. I just needed to tell someone. I don't know what to do." I didn't hesitate. I'll pay it. Her head snapped up. No, Jasper, no. I wasn't. I didn't mean. I know you didn't ask, but I want to help. You've given me so much these past months. Let me do this. I can't accept that. Yes, you can. Please, let me help your brother. He deserves this chance. She started crying then, soft tears running down her cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say yes. She nodded, her voice breaking. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I transferred the money the next day. 2 weeks later, she showed me photos on her phone. Lido standing in front of the university, wearing a university shirt, holding his enrollment papers, grinning at the camera. He's so happy, she said, her voice full of pride. You made this possible. I felt 10 feet tall. I'd helped. I'd made a difference in someone's life. It felt good. Better than good. It felt necessary. I'm glad I could help, I said, and I meant it completely. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Lido wasn't enrolled at any university. Those photos were staged. The enrollment papers were printed from a template. The university shirt was bought online. But I didn't question any of it. Why would I? I was in love. And love, I was learning, makes you believe anything. A year into our relationship, Valentina suggested we move in together. It makes sense, she said one evening as we lay in bed. I'm here almost every night anyway, and my apartment is so expensive. We could save money if we just had one place. You'd really want to live with me? I asked, surprised. Of course. Why wouldn't I? I'm 66 years old, Val. You're 31. You could be with someone younger. Someone who... She pressed her finger to my lips. Stop. Age is just a number. You make me happy. That's what matters. We found a small 2-bedroom apartment in a quieter part of Iloilo. Nothing fancy, but it had good light and a small balcony where we could have coffee in the mornings. I paid the deposit and the first 3 months' rent. Valentina quit her job at the travel agency a week after we moved in. I want to focus on us, she said, on building our future. Maybe I'll start that business I told you about. But for now, I just want to take care of you, take care of our home. It felt natural. She cooked for me, Filipino dishes I'd never heard of before. Sinigang, kare-kare, pancit. She kept the apartment spotless. She laughed at my terrible jokes. She held me when I woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, still grieving Margaret in ways I couldn't articulate. I love you, I told her one night. The first time I'd said it to anyone since my wife died. I love you too, she said, and kissed me softly. I believed her. God help me, I believed her completely. We started talking about marriage, about buying a house in the provinces, somewhere quiet, with a garden. Valentina showed me listings online, small properties an hour outside the city, affordable, perfect for retirement. We could have chickens, she said, laughing. A dog, maybe some fruit trees. You'd want that? A quiet life with an old man? I want a life with you. That's all that matters. We started saving. Or rather, I started saving, transferring money into her account every month. She said it was better for her to handle it because as a local, she could negotiate better prices. She could deal with the paperwork more easily. It made sense. Over the next year, I transferred £85,000 into her account for the house fund. But small things started to shift. She was on her phone more. Late at night, after I'd gone to bed, I'd wake up and see the blue light of her screen illuminating her face. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd always have an answer. My mother, my cousin Maricel, Lido, he's having trouble with his classes. I never questioned it. Why would I? Trust, I thought, was the foundation of love. And I trusted her completely. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in rapid Tagalog. When she saw me, she ended the call quickly. Everything okay? I asked. Yes, just my mother. She couldn't sleep, At 2 in the morning? She's having trouble with her neighbor. I was just calming her down. She kissed my cheek and led me back to bed. I let it go. I always let it go. 2 years into our relationship, Valentina came home one evening with a folder full of papers. "I have something to show you," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. She spread documents across our small dining table, spreadsheets, photos, a handwritten letter. "What is this?" I asked. "An opportunity. My cousin Maricel owns a small café here in Iloilo. She wants to sell it and move to Manila. She's giving family first option to buy." She showed me photos of a charming little café with outdoor seating, plants hanging from the ceiling, fairy lights strung along the walls. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's more than beautiful. It's profitable. Look." She showed me the spreadsheets, monthly revenue, operating costs, profit margins. It looked legitimate, professional. She's selling it for £95,000. "Jasper, this could be our future. We could run it together. You could design renovations. I could manage the day-to-day. It would give us steady income for retirement." I felt a flutter of hesitation. £95,000 was a lot of money. "That's most of what I have left in savings," I said carefully. "I know, and I would never ask if I didn't think it was a good investment. But think about it. We'd own something together, build something together. This could be our legacy." She handed me the letter from her cousin, handwritten, personal, explaining why she was selling, how much the cafe meant to her, how she wanted it to stay in the family. "Can I meet Maricel?" I asked. Valentina's face fell slightly. "She's already in Manila. She moved last month. But we can video call her if you want. That would make me feel better." We set up a video call that evening. A woman appeared on the screen. She looked a bit like Valentina. Same dark eyes, same warm smile. She spoke decent English. "Jasper, it's so nice to meet you. Valentina has told me so much about you." "Likewise. I wanted to ask you about the cafe." We talked for 20 minutes. She answered all my questions. Seemed genuine, warm. At the end of the call, she said, "I know £95,000 is a lot of money, but I promise you, this cafe is worth every penny, and I'm only selling it to family. I want it to go to someone who will love it the way I did." After the call, I felt better. This was real. This was legitimate. "Okay," I told Valentina. "Let's do it." She threw her arms around me, squealing with joy. "Really? Oh, Jasper, you won't regret this." "I promise." I transferred the money in 3 installments over 2 months. £30,000, then £35,000, then the final £30,000. Valentina showed me receipts, signed purchase agreements, photos of the cafe being renovated, new paint, new furniture, new equipment. "When can we visit?" I asked after the final payment cleared. "Soon. They're just finishing the permits. There's a delay with the city. You know how bureaucracy is here." Weeks passed, then months. There was always a reason we couldn't visit. Construction delays, permit issues, supplier problems, a small flood that damaged some equipment. "These things take time here," Valentina assured me, "but it's all being handled. Trust me." And I did. I trusted her. Even when a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that something wasn't right, I silenced it, because the alternative was too painful to consider. That I was being lied to, that the woman I loved was using me. I couldn't let myself believe that, so I didn't. The 3rd year brought a new kind of exhaustion. The emergencies started coming faster, more urgent, higher stakes. Valentina came home crying one afternoon. "It's my mother. She needs surgery. Gallbladder. The doctor says it's urgent." "How much?" I asked, already knowing I'd pay whatever it cost. £12,000. I transferred the money that evening. 2 months later, it was her brother. Lido crashed his motorcycle. He's in the hospital. He needs surgery on his leg. They won't operate until we pay. "How much?" £8,000. I sent it immediately. A month after that, her cousin's husband died suddenly. The family can't afford the funeral. It's so embarrassing for them. They've always been so proud. How much do they need? £5,000. I sent it without question. The requests came every few weeks now, sometimes every few days. Her aunt needed medicine. Her nephew needed school supplies. The café needed emergency repairs after a storm. Her mother needed physical therapy after the surgery. Each time, Valentina would cry. Thank me. Hold me. Tell me I was the only person who truly cared about her family. I don't know what I'd do without you. She'd say, her eyes wet with tears. You've saved us so many times. I felt needed, important, essential. But I also felt something else. A creeping, cold dread that I was running out of money, that my savings were disappearing faster than I could track. One night, I sat alone with my laptop while Valentina slept, and I added it all up. £1,200 for Lido's enrollment, £85,000 for the house fund, £95,000 for the café, £12,000 for her mother's surgery, £8,000 for Lido's accident, £5,000 for the funeral, and dozens of smaller amounts. £500 here, £2,000 there, £3,000, £500, £1,800. By my calculation, I'd given her £445,000 over 3 years, nearly £500,000. My entire life savings, money I'd earned over 40 years of careful work and careful saving. Gone. I felt sick. But when I tried to imagine confronting her, my stomach twisted. What if I was wrong? What if these were all legitimate emergencies and I was being paranoid and cruel? What if questioning her meant losing her? I closed the laptop. I didn't say anything. The next morning, Valentina asked for £25,000. It's the final payment for the property in the provinces. The seller is getting impatient. If we don't pay by Friday, we lose it. I hesitated for the first time. Val, I need to be honest. I'm running out of money. Her face fell. Oh, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I never meant to be a burden. You're not a burden, but I've given you so much over the past 3 years, and I haven't seen the cafe. I haven't seen the house. I haven't met your mother or Lido or anyone in your family. She looked hurt, wounded. You don't trust me. It's not that. I just need to understand where all this money is going. She stood up, tears forming in her eyes. I've given you everything. My time, my love, my life. And you think I'm lying to you. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Panic flooded through me. Wait, Valentina, wait. She stopped, her hand on the doorknob. If you don't trust me, Jasper, then what are we doing? I felt myself crumbling. I trust you. I do. I'm sorry. She turned, her eyes searching my face. Then prove it. Send the money. Show me you believe in us. I transferred £25,000 that afternoon. She kissed me, thanked me, told me I wouldn't regret it. 2 days later, she was gone. The night before Valentina disappeared, everything seemed normal. Perfect, even. She cooked chicken adobo for dinner. Her favorite. We ate on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city. This is nice, I said. Just us. No stress. No emergencies. She smiled, resting her hand on mine. I know. I feel like we've been so busy lately. It's good to just be together. After dinner, we watched a movie on my laptop, some romantic comedy she'd chosen. She rested her head on my shoulder, her hair smelling like coconut shampoo. Halfway through the film, she paused it and looked at me. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy here? In the Philippines? The question surprised me. Yes. Why? I just want to make sure. You gave up so much to be here. Your home, your country, your old life. I didn't give up anything that mattered. I found you. That's all I need. She smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. Tell me about your wife. Margaret. We'd talked about Margaret before, but not often. It was still painful. What do you want to know? What was she like? I thought for a moment. She was kind, patient. She loved gardening. She had this way of making everyone around her feel calm, safe. Do you still miss her? Every day, but differently now. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. Because of me? I squeezed her hand. Yes, because of you. You gave me a reason to keep living when I didn't think I had one. She leaned up and kissed me softly. I love you, Jasper. I love you too. She went to bed early that night, saying she was tired. I stayed up for a while, checking emails, looking through old photos of Margaret on my laptop, pictures of us in our garden, on holiday in Scotland, at our daughter's wedding. I felt a pang of guilt sometimes, loving Valentina while Margaret's memory was still so present. But Margaret would have wanted me to be happy. I knew that. When I finally climbed into bed around midnight, Valentina was asleep, her back to me. I kissed her shoulder gently and closed my eyes. I didn't know it would be the last time I'd ever see her. I didn't know that, in less than 12 hours, my entire world would collapse. I woke up to emptiness, cold sheets, silence. I've already described that morning. The panic, the searching, the phone calls that went nowhere. But what I haven't described is what came after. The desperate, pathetic hours where I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. I walked to her mother's house, or what she'd told me was her mother's house. The address was a vacant lot, overgrown grass, no building, no neighbors to ask. I went to the travel agency where we'd met. A different girl sat at Valentina's old desk. Excuse me, do you know Valentina Cortez? She used to work here. The girl looked confused. I've been here for 3 years. No one by that name has ever worked here. That's impossible. I met her here 3 years ago. She was a receptionist. Sorry, sir. You must be thinking of a different agency. I pulled out my phone, showed her a photo of us together. This woman. Have you seen her? The girl studied the photo, then shook her head. No, I don't know her. I stumbled out of the agency, my mind reeling. I tried calling the cousin, Maricel. The number I had for her went to voicemail. I left a message, then another, then 10 more. No response. I went to the bank and asked to speak to a manager. I need to trace some transfers I made. I think there might be fraud. The manager, a middle-aged woman with sympathetic eyes, looked over my account history. Sir, these transfers were all authorized by you, from your account to hers. There's no indication of fraud. But she's gone. She took the money and disappeared. Did you have a written agreement? A contract? Any legal documentation about what the money was for? No, it was for our future, for a house, for a business. The manager's expression softened with pity. I'm sorry, sir, but there's nothing the bank can do. The money was transferred willingly. Unless you can prove coercion or fraud, it's a civil matter. I left the bank feeling hollowed out. That night, I sat in the empty apartment and tried to piece it together. I opened her drawers, looking for something, anything, but she'd taken everything. Every photo, every piece of paper, every trace of her existence, except one thing. Under the bathroom sink, I found a receipt, small, crumpled, for a hotel in Manila, dated 2 months ago, the same week she'd told me she was visiting her sick mother in the provinces. My hands shook as I held it. It was evidence. Proof. But proof of what? That she'd lied about visiting her mother? The receipt didn't change anything. I called the hotel anyway. I'm trying to reach a guest who stayed with you in January, Valentina Cortez. I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest information. Please. It's important. She's missing. A long pause. Then, sir, if you believe someone is missing, you should contact the police. I hung up. The police couldn't help me. I knew that. This wasn't kidnapping. This was abandonment. And there was a difference. 2 days later, I contacted a lawyer, Attorney Raimundo. His office was small, cramped with filing cabinets and stacks of paper. He listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Mr. Nightingale, I understand this is painful, but legally, there's very little we can do. She stole £445,000 from me. Did she steal it, or did you give it to her?" "I gave it to her for specific purposes. A house, a business, family emergencies. None of it was real." "Can you prove that?" "What do you mean? Do you have contracts, signed agreements, written proof that she promised to use the money for these things and then didn't?" I felt my hope crumbling. We were in a relationship. We didn't have contracts. Then legally, the money was a gift. You gave it willingly. There's no fraud here. Just a relationship that ended badly. There has to be something I can do. Attorney Raimundo's expression was kind but firm. "You could try to file a civil case, but it would be expensive, lengthy, and your chances of winning are almost zero. The money was transferred from your account to hers with your authorization. Unless you can prove she coerced you or defrauded you with false documents, there's no case." I left his office feeling defeated, but I wasn't ready to give up. I hired a private investigator, Mang Cesar. He was in his 50s, weathered face, tired eyes. We met in a coffee shop near my apartment. "I need you to find someone," I said, sliding a photo of Valentina across the table. He studied it. "Who is she?" "Someone who disappeared with £445,000 of my money." He raised an eyebrow. "Girlfriend?" "Yes." He sighed, the sound of a man who'd heard this story 100 times before. "What do you know about her?" "Her name is Valentina Cortez. She's from Iloilo. She has a brother named Lito, a mother named Inde, a cousin named Maricel." "You sure about those names?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you sure any of that is true?" The question hit me like a slap. "I don't know." Mang Cesar leaned back in his chair. "Let me do some digging, but I'll be honest with you, sir. If she planned this, if she's done this before, she's going to be very hard to find." He called me a week later. We met at the same coffee shop. I ran her name through my contacts. Valentina Cortez. There are 12 women by that name in Iloilo alone. None of them match the age or description you gave me. "How is that possible?" "It's possible because Valentina Cortez probably isn't her real name." The words settled over me like concrete. "The travel agency where you said you met her?" I talked to the owner. "No one named Valentina has ever worked there." "The café she said her cousin owned?" "I found the property. It's been abandoned for 5 years. I felt like I was going to be sick." "The video call I had with her cousin, the woman I talked to?" "Probably a friend. Someone she hired to play a role. It's not complicated if you know what you're doing. So everything was fake. All of it." Mang Cesar's expression was sympathetic. "I'm sorry, sir. But based on what I found, yes, this was a long-term scam. She targeted you, built trust over time, extracted as much money as she could, and then disappeared. Have you found her?" "No, and I probably won't. If she's smart, which it sounds like she is, she's already in another city, maybe another country. Could have changed her name, changed her appearance. So that's it? She just gets away with it?" "Most of the time, yes. That's how these things work." I paid him for his time and walked home in a daze. That night, I sat in the apartment that had once felt like home and now felt like a crime scene. I replayed every moment, every conversation, every touch, every time she'd told me she loved me. Had any of it been real? Or was I just a job to her? A mark? A target? 3 years of my life? 3 years of believing I'd found love again? 3 years of thinking I mattered to someone? All of it was a performance. A carefully constructed lie designed to extract every pound I had. I wasn't special. I wasn't loved. I was convenient, lonely, easy. The days that followed blurred together. I stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and walk through the apartment, touching the places where her things used to be. I'd open the closet and stare at the empty space where her dresses had hung. I felt like I was losing my mind. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after she disappeared, I found myself standing on the balcony, looking down at the street below. It was 5 stories, high enough. I thought about Margaret, about how she'd fought so hard to live, even when the cancer was eating her alive. And here I was, considering giving up because of money and pride. I stepped back from the edge. I wasn't going to let Valentina take that from me too. I called my daughter in Bristol. Emma. We hadn't spoken in months. Dad? Her voice was surprised. We'd had a falling out before I left for the Philippines. She'd thought I was running away from grief instead of facing it. She'd been right. Hi, sweetheart. Are you okay? You sound terrible. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her everything, the whole sordid story. When I finished, there was a long silence. Dad, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were lonely. And she took advantage of that. I gave her everything, Emma. Every penny I'd saved. I know, but you're still here. You're still alive. Money can be replaced. You can't. I don't know how to move forward from this. You come home. You come back to Bristol. You let me help you. I'm ashamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You fell in love. It didn't work out. That happens. It wasn't love. It was a con. Then you learned a very expensive lesson. But you learned it. Now come home. I booked a flight for the following week. My last few days in Iloilo felt surreal. I packed my small suitcase, gave notice on the apartment, sold the furniture I'd bought. I walked through the city one final time, seeing it with new eyes. I passed couples holding hands, expats sitting in cafes with their Filipina partners. Some of them looked happy. Some of them looked exactly like I must have looked 3 years ago. Hopeful, oblivious. I wondered how many of them were real. How many were just waiting for the same moment I'd had, the morning they'd wake up alone. On my last evening, I sat on the balcony with a beer and watched the sun set. I thought about Valentina. I tried to summon hatred, rage, but all I felt was tired. She'd given me 3 years of companionship in exchange for £445,000. In her mind, maybe that was a fair trade. In mine, it was the most expensive mistake of my life. I didn't hate her. I hated myself for being so desperate to be loved that I ignored every red flag, for choosing to believe comfortable lies instead of uncomfortable truths, for letting loneliness make me stupid. The night before my flight, I wrote her a letter, not because I thought she'd ever read it, but because I needed to say it. Valentina, if that's even your real name, I don't know where you are. I don't know who you really are. Maybe you're already running the same game on someone else. Maybe you're living comfortably on my life savings. I won't pretend I'm not angry. I won't pretend this doesn't hurt. But I also won't pretend I didn't play a part in this. I wanted so badly to believe that someone could love me again that I ignored every warning sign. I saw what I wanted to see. I heard what I wanted to hear. You didn't force me to give you that money. I gave it willingly. Because I was lonely. Because I was grieving. Because I thought loving you would fill the hole Margaret left. That's on me, not you. I hope the money was worth 3 years of your life. I hope whatever you're doing now makes you happy. Because despite everything, I don't wish you harm. I just wish you'd been honest. I wish you'd seen me as a person instead of a target. But you didn't, and now I have to live with that. So do you. Goodbye. I didn't send it. I left it on the kitchen counter when I walked out of the apartment for the last time. The morning of my flight, I took a tricycle to the airport. The city rushed past me in a blur of color and noise. I checked in, went through security, sat in the departure lounge, surrounded by tourists and families and business travelers. I pulled out my phone one last time. No messages, no missed calls, just silence. I opened my banking app and looked at my balance. £3,847. That's what was left of a lifetime of savings. I closed the app, The flight was called. I boarded, found my seat by the window. As the plane taxied down the runway, I looked out at the Philippine Islands below, green and beautiful and full of promise. 3 years ago, I'd come here broken and hoping to heal. I was leaving even more broken. But maybe, I thought, that was part of healing too. Breaking completely so you could rebuild properly. The plane lifted into the air. I watched Iloilo shrink beneath me until it was just a dot, then nothing. I didn't cry. I'd done enough crying. I leaned my head against the window and closed my eyes. I thought about what Attorney Raimundo had said, that the money was a gift, not stolen, just given to someone who didn't deserve it. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was the cost of believing in love at 68. £445,000 in 3 years for the lesson that some things can't be bought. Not real love, not real connection, not real trust. Those things had to be earned. And I tried to buy them instead. The flight attendant came by with drinks. I ordered a whiskey, sipped it slowly. By the time we landed in Dubai for my connection, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life bitter. I wasn't going to let Valentina, or whatever her real name was, take any more from me than she already had. She'd taken my money. She'd taken 3 years. But she hadn't taken my life. That was still mine. When I landed in Bristol, Emma was waiting for me at arrivals. She hugged me tight, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than emptiness. "Welcome home, Dad." "Thanks, sweetheart. You ready to start over?" I looked at her. My daughter, the one person who'd never lied to me, never used me, never seen me as anything other than her father. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." 6 months later, I'm sitting in my old house in Bristol, the one I couldn't stand to be in after Margaret died, the one that reminded me of everything I'd lost. But it doesn't feel haunted anymore. It feels like home. I've started working again. Small consulting projects, enough to rebuild my savings slowly, enough to feel useful. Emma visits every Sunday. We have lunch, we talk. We've repaired what was broken between us. I've joined a grief support group, sat in circles with other widows and widowers, and learned that I'm not the only one who made questionable decisions after loss. Some people drink, some people isolate. I flew to the Philippines and fell for a scam. We're all just trying to survive. I don't think about Valentina often anymore. When I do, it's not with anger. It's with a strange kind of clarity. She saw someone vulnerable and she took advantage. That says more about her than it does about me. I could have been anyone. Any lonely old man with money and a need to feel important. I just happened to be convenient. The £445,000 is gone. I've accepted that. It's not coming back. But I'm still here. I'm 70 years old now. I have a few good years left, maybe more, and I'm not going to spend them mourning money or regretting choices. I made a mistake, a very expensive one. But I survived it. Sometimes late at night, I wonder if she ever thinks about me, if she feels any guilt, if she tells herself stories to justify what she did, or if I'm just a forgotten chapter in a long career of cons. I'll never know. And that's okay. I don't need closure from her. I've found my own. I'm not the same man who flew to the Philippines 3 years ago, desperate and grieving and lost. I'm not the same man who woke up in Iloilo to find everything gone. I'm someone else now. Someone who learned that love can't be bought, that loneliness is a terrible compass, that trust, once broken, leaves scars that never fully heal. But I'm also someone who survived, who came home, who rebuilt, and in the end, maybe that's enough. The money's gone, the dream's gone, the woman I thought I loved never existed, but I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward, and that, I've learned, is the only revenge that matters. Not getting even, not getting answers, just getting on with life. So that's what I'm doing. One day at a time, one small step at a time, moving forward into whatever comes next. Older, emptier, but somehow, against all odds, still standing. That's my story. That's what £445,000 bought me. Not love, not a future, just a very expensive lesson in what happens when you let loneliness make your decisions. I don't recommend it, but I survived it. And if you're reading this, if you're thinking about sending money to someone you met online, someone who seems too good to be true, someone who always has an emergency right when you're about to pull back, please, learn from my mistake. Don't make it yours, because the silence that comes after is louder than you can possibly imagine. And the cost is more than money. It's years. It's dignity. It's the ability to trust yourself. I paid that price. You don't have to. That's all I have left to say.